Welcome to You Brew Kombucha. Today I'm going to walk you through some tips on how to label and share homemade kombucha bottles to give as gifts to friends and family. So I'm sure a lot of home brewers can relate to this, but I love giving homemade kombucha as gifts to friends and family. I think it's just a nice, unique gift that you can give to people, and I love that homemade kombucha gives you the versatility and the ability to control what flavors and ingredients you use, and so you can really customize your brews based on the person that you are gifting it to. And I'd also like to thank my friends over at Stomp Stickers for sponsoring this video. I have ordered some stickers and labels from Stomp, and they've just been such fantastic quality, and I love using them for my home brews. I love using them on my SCOBY hotels, love using them as kind of labels for homemade gifts that I give to people, including kombucha, so I'll talk a little bit about that later on in this video. But for now, we're gonna go ahead and bottle a gallon of kombucha. So what I have here is a batch of fermented kombucha. This is unflavored, and this has been fermenting for about 2.5 weeks or so at room temperature. First fermentation can really last as long as it needs to, depending on the temperature of your location and depending on how acidic and sweet you like your kombucha to taste. And also your taste preferences really matter here. So some people like their kombucha to be on the drier, tartar side. Some people like it to be on the sweet side. So it really is up to your own personal preference when you decide to bottle your kombucha, but I like to aim for a slightly more acidic flavor that still has a little bit of sweetness. I don't know how helpful that description is, but basically bottle it when it tastes good to you. And that to me is perfect. I think there's a little bit of acidity. There's actually a little bit of carbonation that's already built up in that, which is really cool because it's an open vessel. What I like to do is to take the SCOBY out of the brew vessel and put it into my SCOBY hotel. As homebrewers know, you want to save the pellicle or the SCOBY and about 1 to 2 cups of starter liquid from each batch to use as starter tea for your next successive batch. So I have a SCOBY hotel, so I just like to keep all of my extra kombucha in that. If you don't have a SCOBY hotel, just keep it in a jar and then it'll be ready and waiting for you for whenever you want to brew your next batch. So clean hands. Just kind of pick it out. And you can see that it's a little gnarly looking, but you can see that there are different layers here. And a fresh new SCOBY has grown at the top layer over the surface of the vessel. I'm just gonna take all of that and just put it in there. I'm gonna give the brew a stir because yeast and other sediment tend to like settling at the bottom of the brew. So giving it a nice, healthy stir will just help homogenize the brew. And you can see some good carbonation already brewing. We like that. That's a sign of good fermentation. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure about 2 cups of liquid. I like to use at least 2 cups of kombucha per gallon batch, just to make sure that the brew is nicely inoculated with that good bacteria and yeast. And now we can just put our SCOBY hotel away, and that'll be ready for us whenever we're ready to brew our next batch. From here, we need a strainer, and I'm gonna go ahead and strain out the yeasty bits that have accumulated in the brew. Looks like there are some extra tea leaves that got left in the brew there as well. So I like to strain just to make sure that the brew is completely liquid. But if you're just seeing these kind of brown yeasty strands, there's nothing wrong with keeping them in the kombucha. In fact, a lot of people say that you should keep them in because they help with the carbonation. I think any help with fermentation is pretty nominal at this point. There's a lot of really good bacteria and yeast already in the liquid that we don't need to deal with having to keep the stringy yeasty bits in there just to try to preserve that. So what we have here is some blackberry puree as well as some passion fruit pulp that I've defrosted from these frozen packets. I like this brand, La Nuestra. I like to get this from my local Mexican grocery store, and they're just super handy to have on hand. They have a ton of flavors. There's blackberry, mango, passion fruit, lots of different fruits that work really well for my kombucha brews because you can just defrost these or nuke them in the microwave really quickly. You can add sugar if it's not as sweet, and I actually added about, I want to say, a half a cup of plain white sugar to the mix because passion fruit is really tart. And if you want to see some ideas on how I use passion fruit in kombucha bottling, I have a whole other video dedicated to passion fruit because it's actually my favorite flavor. So I'll link that in the description box below too. And I also have a bunch of other videos that walk you through how I prep my other fruit flavoring. So this is just one example. There are a lot of ways you can flavor kombucha, but today we are going with blackberry passion fruit since I love that flavor and it makes for a really striking brew when you give them to people as gifts. So I will go ahead and just actually give this mix a stir. And like I said, I added about a half a cup of plain white granulated sugar to this. You can really adjust how sweet and how potent the flavor is based on your taste preferences. Again, a lot of this is so subjective based on people's individual preferences, so I don't like giving specific measurements, especially when it comes to flavoring, because it really depends on, from brand to brand, how sweet or how tart the fruit is, or if you're using fresh fruit, is it in season? So any measurements that I give you are really just intended to be guidelines as starting point, but you can definitely taste your brew. What we're aiming for is a brew that tastes good to you. So if it doesn't taste good to you, then you need to make some adjustments. Maybe we'll start with, oh, I'm spilling. Let's start with a couple cups. Look at how beautiful. And I'm actually pretty sure I'm gonna want this to be a little bit more potent than that, so let's just go for 3 cups. And give that a stir. And at this point, give it a taste and just see how that's tasting. That's honestly perfect as it is. But one quick tip that I like to tell folks is try to aim for something that's a little bit more sweet than you're liking, because as this continues to ferment at room temperature for a few more days, that second fermentation is what's actually going to get this carbonated in the bottle. It's going to get less sweet as the yeasts and the bacteria continue to eat those sugars and ferment. It will turn those sugars into carbon dioxide, which is what makes the bottle fizzy. So I think this is perfect to drink if you want to drink this as is right now. If you don't want your kombucha to be carbonated, this is ready to drink. Tastes delicious, tastes perfect. But since I do want it to be on the fizzy side, I'm just gonna add, should I just add the rest of this? Let's see. I'm gonna add another half cup or so, just to kind of push that sweetness over the edge, just a tad. This is literally like maybe 2 tablespoons of liquid, so I'm just gonna add it all. And again, see, it's just a taste as you go kind of process. But now we are ready to bottle our brew. So you can see that I have a bunch of different bottle types here, and I like just using really nice, clean looking bottles whenever I'm giving kombucha as gifts to friends. And if I really want to add an extra little personal touch, that's when I really like using these types of labels. So what I really like about these labels from Stomp is that it's really easy to just design your label online. They ship them to you free, you get them really quickly. And I don't know if you can tell, but there's a degree of detail in the printing that I actually found myself really impressed by, because I sort of just hand wrote my logo back when I started this channel a few years ago. I literally just wrote it out on a piece of paper with a Sharpie. And that was what I used to help create these labels. And so when they were printed, it actually literally looks like I wrote the label out with a Sharpie. Like, you can see the detail there. The top where it says You Brew Kombucha is what was printed as part of the sticker. And then the flavor right here is what I just wrote about a minute ago. And so it just makes it look like you've kind of hand printed and handcrafted these labels. And I went for a more kind of handmade, simpler design there, just because I feel like it's kind of my vibe as a home brewer. But for those of you that have like commercial brewing operations, or if you sell your kombucha, you can also, you know, have them print out labels in different sizes with your logo and with the different flavors and everything like that. So I feel like this is a good option whether you're a home brewer that's looking to up-level your label game, or if you want to share some nice labels with your friends and family, or if you've got a commercial brewing operation and want some really high quality labels, you can head over to Stomp and see what those options are for you. And if you're interested in picking up some stickers, I've got a discount code in the description box down below. We're ready to bottle. I'm just gonna give this another stir to make sure that the mix is totally homogeneous, because we're using real fruit here. It has a tendency to settle down at the bottom of the pitcher, and you just want to make sure that the mix is as homogeneous as possible as you bottle. So here we go. And some tips for when you're sharing this once it's fermented. So again, I like to ferment my bottles for about 4 days or so at room temperature. Again, it depends on how warm or cold your location is. And so check out my video on second fermentation or carbonation if you want the full details here. But after they're done fermenting, I like to keep them chilled just to make sure that that fermentation stops and it doesn't continue to get overcarbonated in the bottle. But when you're giving these as gifts to friends and family, that's something that you definitely need to take into consideration, because as any home brewer will know, sometimes bottles can get kind of overcarbonated and make a mess when you open them if they fizzy out all over the out of the bottle when you open them. And so what I like to do when I am giving kombucha as a gift to folks is completely chill the bottles down first, and then give each bottle that I'm giving as a gift a quick test to make sure it's not overcarbonated. And that just ensures that when your gift recipient opens the bottle, you're not giving them a mess and a chore to have to clean up. But again, chilling the bottles completely also greatly lessens the likelihood of an overcarbonated mess, because warmer temperatures exaggerate carbonation. So always be sure to give fully chilled bottles. And if you're giving them to folks, I actually like keeping like an ice pack in the gift bag just to keep the kombuchas chilled, especially if you don't know if they're gonna be able to refrigerate them right away. So that's another tip. And then I'll also just let them know, like, hey, this is a homemade, natural, unpasteurized product. And so it's a live fermented drink. And so they either want to drink it right away or get it chilled as soon as they can, so that they can enjoy the kombucha as you intended for them to. Wow, perfect. So now I'm just gonna cap these off. And a quick note, you'll see that a couple of these bottles are recycled bottles that I got from other kombucha bottles at the store. You can check out my video on how to remove labels if you want some tips on how to get those labels off really cleanly. But you can obviously reuse the caps that come with them. But if you need some extra caps as replacements for those store-bought like GT brand bottles, these basic F217 type caps really do the trick to make for good replacement caps. And I have another video all about caps and choosing the right caps for different bottles, so I will also link that video down below. And these are great because I've been reusing them many times. You can see I've had like old labels on here, but for the ones that I'm giving as gifts, these four, I'm just gonna make sure that I get some clean, unlabeled caps for those. And then I always recommend using a rubber gripper to go in and just make sure that that seal is super tight for each of the bottles. Making sure that you have a tight seal will make it so that the bottles can actually pressurize and carbonate. So I'm just gonna go ahead and write a few more of these because I'm actually giving these 4 away as gifts and the rest are mine because, you know, I gotta take care of myself too. So there you have it. I love using labels like this to just add a nice little personal touch to homemade gifts that I'm sharing with people. And again, for kombucha, because it comes with the added complexity of it being a live fermented homemade product, you just wanna make sure that the person that you're giving it to is receiving a fully chilled bottle. Add some ice packs into the gift bag if you wanna make sure that it stays super chilled until they can get it to the fridge. And then just let them know that it's ready for them to enjoy as is, or just to keep it chilled if they want to save it for later. But I hope you found this useful. I'll link down to Stomp's website down below so that you can find out more about the types of stickers and labels that they offer if you end up wanting to up-level your home brews, or if you're a commercial brewer looking to find some quality labels. So thanks for watching. Happy brewing.